Hi there, my name is Trolls and welcome to yet another episode of Soundpaint. In today's video we're going to go back to 1980 and visit our new tenor sax, which we call Spectralius. The tenor saxophone was invented in the 1840s by a Belgian instrument maker. His name was Adolphe Sax. And reading up upon it, he had a really interesting story. Both of his parents were instrument makers and made significant changes to the modern French horn as we know it. But Adolphe had an extremely dark childhood. Just reading up upon it, like his mom actually referred to him as sort of a cursed child, if you will. And it's totally wild to read about what this gentleman actually had to endure just as a human being. For example, like he once fell like 3 stories from a building and hit his head down on the ground. I think it was like at age 3, he drank a whole bowl of acidic water, mistaking it for milk. And there's another point where he swallowed a pin as well. But that's just the beginning of his very dark tales. He was also supposedly involved in some kind of heavy gunpowder accident and got severely burned. And at another time he had a cast iron burn a side of his body. Another time he hit his head on cobblestone and fell into a river and almost died from it. And the story goes on and on. His nickname was the Little Ghost. And I don't know what spirit possessed this awesome individual, but he actually invented many different instruments in the saxophone family, and one of them being the beautiful tenor saxophone. So here we are, some 180 years later, something like that, being able to play it on a computer here. And as you probably noticed when I was playing it here, it sounded very realistic because I was using our new H.A.L technology. H.A.L stands for Hyper Acoustic Legato, and it's a new technology that we've just added to Soundpaint 2.0 that allows me to play instruments like this saxophone with complete realism. In fact, I don't know how to play the saxophone in reality like the physical instrument. I've studied some of the licks, so I know sort of how you play it and transfer that to the keyboard, but I actually feel like I can play the saxophone. It's a little bit like that quote in The Matrix where Neo says like, I've learned Kung Fu, I've learned saxophone. And you'll probably notice as I play, the harder I play in the keys, the more pronounced H.A.L gets in the legato. So for example, if I play just softly, it's more lyrical, softer. But if I start playing more expressively, naming playing harder on the keys here, you get more pronounced legato. You hear that? Sort of like rattle sound is actually what happens when you play a sax really, really softly, an older vintage instrument like from 1980. In Soundpaint, we have something called morph shading. Morph shading is our version of crossfading, but the difference is in crossfading, you normally get artifacts, you'll get what's called phasing. The waves are sort of crossing each other, they're being mixed. But with morph shading, I have 127 layers generated in real time when I move my mod wheel here. That creates a very, very organic, lifelike sound where I really feel like I'm closer to the instrument. It's like really having it in my hands. Check out what happens when I just play a single key here and then move my mod wheel here, generating 127 new morph shades as I do it without any phase issues. It's really like, how can I describe it? It just feels like I'm breathing through the keys really. No player could hold his breath for that long, but you get the point. It's just incredibly organic. And with traditional technologies like Kontakt, we don't have morph shading synthesis, but in Soundpaint we do now with H.A.L, and it's just the natural vibrato of the player, so you can play it very softly here. And as I dial up the mod wheel here, you get more pronounced vibrato, so from that very sort of breath, a little more soft vibrato, into full vibrato completely fluently. Now let me show you something here. If I go into the UI and I click legato time up here, it's going to sustain the note by itself. That's the amount of legato time that I set here in the slider. The cool thing about that is that I don't have to play with overlapping keys. I can just go like... That's liberating because in Kontakt and other conventional legato technologies, you have to play with overlapping keys to trigger the legato intervals. I can also turn it all the way down here and just use my sustain pedal instead. It's equally liberating. So whether you want to use legato time where the notes are held down automatically or you just want to use your sustain pedal, totally up to you. I kind of like using the sustain pedal mostly because it reminds me about just playing normal piano style. That was a little bit sort of too extended version of the fourth theme because it was played in one consecutive stream of breath. A real player could not hold it for that long. So I would encourage you when you use the instrument here, especially in legato mode here, just to think like how much breath do you have really as a player. It's just going to make it sound a little more realistic in the mock-up. So it would more be like... So I'm actually breathing as I'm playing because it just makes me more in contact with the instrument. But anyway, that's just a little bit of an intro to what this is about. Let me take you inside the DAW and show you a demo I've written with this tenor saxophone so you can really see how it works in the DAW. One of the tricks you're going to see in the DAW, and you're going to see me use this a lot when I play legato, is play in what I call a Flemish kind of way. So when I trigger the legato, I do that sort of little Flemish notion. You notice that? Like that. You can also do it with runs. But it's just a way of triggering that legato mode, so you're sort of more in the player mode, if you will. But if you just hold it down here, you get a little more of that sort of stale, typical sample saxophone. So try to use that FL fling kind of thing. But let me take you inside of the DAW and show you this demo with the 1980s Spectralius tenor saxophone here. I'm using a couple of other instruments in the demo. This is 100% made in Soundpaint. Everything you ever hear me do is 100% made in Soundpaint. But in this demo here, I'm using an old Polyvox. That's an old synthesizer. I'm also using the JX8P, which I think is one of the most beautiful and underrated synthesizers, and a Juno as well. And then our Red 522, that's the little drum machine hiding up there, which I really see as the heir to the mighty 808, which is right over there. And it's just an awesome combo with this saxophone. I don't know what to call this style of music. It's sort of like, I don't know, trap jazz. Judge for yourself. But so far, we've only looked at the Hyper Acoustic Legato, which is a part of our H.A.L engine here. But you might wonder, like, well, what about other articulations in the library? Spectralius has a wealth of articulations here. It's recorded with 2 different microphones, and I should show you them very briefly here as well. But on top of that, you have a variety of arcs, sustains, trills, performance articulations. There are dozens and dozens here. If you just look at the parts alone here, and these are heavy, multi-sampled, and deep-sampled, you'll see that there are so many different articulations in it, including runs, though you can completely build runs as well. But you have scoops, dadas like dada, those more percussive articulations. You have staccatissimo, staccato, staccatissimo, which is an even shorter version of it. I'm not even sure I pronounced that the right way. But we have multiple types of short notes as well. Let me take you into some of the programs here and just demo a variety of these different articulations here, starting with the microphone positions. Let me just play one more legato before we get into the other ones here, so you can hear the difference between the 2 mics. One is very close and very intimate. You can hear that sizzling in the instrument, that sort of breathy sound. One is a little further away, but they have very different characters. I would almost say like the close mic sounds more like 1980, and the room mic, which is a little further away, has a little sharper tone, almost more like a 1990s kind of saxophone. But let me just show you here briefly on the legatos. Starting here with a closed microphone. And room mic. And close. And room. But let me show you some of the individual programs as well. Starting here with the arcs. They're so beautiful here. I don't even have to play this one here. I'm just going to trigger the ARP. So in this case, these are long arcs, and they're beautiful because you get that natural long expression of the note. You can certainly do it using morph shading on the mod wheel here, but sometimes it's liberating just to be able to sort of flow with the player. These are very long arcs, so you can really just let the note ring and sit there. But that was just one example of a long arc. We have all the long arcs broken into 4 different dynamics, so we were just listening to the fortissimo. Let me also play with the mezzo forte long arc. Or a long mezzo piano arc. And I just love that breath sound. You know, it's almost like, I don't know, electricity is not the right sound because it's a human player, but it's just... Let me just show you yet another long arc here. This would be the piano arc, but long still, but very, very emotional, very soft, delicate. What a beautiful, beautiful instrument. You know, it's so beautiful when samples move us, when we're not just bound by staticness, but when you really, really feel it on the keys. Like, this is just a joy to play. Let me show you a few more arcs. As you can see here in the programs, we have a lot of them. And if you go into the parts, there's even more here. So I could play arcs all day long here, but let me just show you two of the medium ones here as well. Let's go down to the medium arcs. So they're not as long. Mezzo piano. And I probably shouldn't play 7 saxophones in clusters of chords all the time, but just a single note. I love this note down here. That little attack. Let me try to use single note stretch on that and see what happens here. So now I have this note all over my keyboard here. Cute. I just say that because there are so many thousands and thousands of real-time samples in here, and sometimes when you just find one of them, like this one had just that attack on it. And very briefly, we also have short arcs. Notice in the arc here that I have made a variety of little tiny micro compositions in here just to inspire you and give you an idea about like what was the intention when I recorded the arc, like what I really want out of it. But there's a lot more than just legato and arcs in this library as well. Also did some experimental stuff here. This I call the B machine. It's 2 different types of flutter tongues morphed together using time stretching at the same time. It's a strange sound. So what you're hearing is the flutter tongue, but sped down so slow you can hear each flutter of the tongue like a flim, flim in slow motion. So when you go flutter, it's normally like, but this is like each of those slowed so slowly. And then you can speed them up. And to me, it sounded sort of like a B. But you also have all your usual suspects. For example, in terms of short notes, these are marcatos, but with natural round robin. So if you played a reggae, it would be like. But every time I play it, there's a natural variation in the notes. You don't get that sort of machine gun effect. And even if you just listen to one note, you'll notice that the attack and the sound is different every time. Not the same thing, but it can also be performance-based articulations. For example, and you'll notice again that you don't get that dreaded machine gun effect because it's not the same sample. Always something new happening. So here's another articulation that shortens it down even more. triplets, tuplets. Or think of a thundercloud or a rainfall of saxophones playing tremolo here, using the speeding up here. So in time right now, I'm gonna play the tremolo so slow that it can sustain forever, and then move it up in speed. Or staccatos, or staccatissimo. And you'll notice again, not the same note here on the airy key. So cool. And like that kind of style. And if the staccatissimo, and forgive me, this is where my mouth doesn't work anymore, wasn't enough, we also have a staccatissimo articulation, so even shorter. I also think, like, for me, the saxophone is such a lead instrument. So for me, like, trying to make a synthesizer out of it, if you notice under effects here, you'll see there's a cascade of different effects. Anyway, as you can see, it goes on and on and on. We have H.A.L, no more crossfading, true polyphony when you play your legato. It's freeing. The machine is alive. We're communicating together. I don't feel this dead digital relic is just staring at me. I feel it's a machine that's breathing and it's oozing of life. That's really what I want Soundpaint to become.